Usher in Daniel 11, Part 1. Daniel 11 begins in the time of the Medes and the Persians. The vision of Daniel chapter 11 occurs in the third year that King Cyrus was reigning, which is also the first year that Cyrus ruled by himself. The angel Gabriel comes to show Daniel a line of truth that would be very important in the last days. Daniel, the friend of God, was now an old man and nearing the end of his life. Here in his very last vision, God sends Gabriel to show him that which is noted in the scripture of truth. The book of Daniel has a reputation for repetition. Daniel chapter 2 and 7 both describe the four major kingdoms from Babylon to the end of time. In Daniel chapter 8 and 11, the history of these same kingdoms are repeated in greater detail from the time of Medo-Persia to the end of time. Daniel's reputation for repetition is also seen within Daniel chapter 11 itself, which we will see in part 2. Gabriel begins chapter 11 by pointing back in time to the start of the reign of Darius the Mede. He then describes a few important kings that would reign in Medo-Persia after Cyrus. He ends this thought by highlighting Ahasuerus from the book of Esther, who was the fourth and the richest king to reign from Cyrus at that time. Though there were more kings in Medo-Persia, Ahasuerus is the last mentioned here because of his pivotal role in stirring up war with Greece, the very next kingdom to take over. Gabriel swiftly moves on to describe a mighty king who would reign with great dominion. This was Alexander the Great under the Grecian Empire. From 336 to 323 BC, his dominion was great and extended from Greece to Babylon and from Turkey to Egypt. At the pinnacle of his success, having never lost a battle and around just 32 years of age, Alexander suddenly died from intemperance. At his death, the kingdom of Greece was thrown into 22 years of anarchy, chaos, and civil war before four generals finally emerged from the Grecian Empire in 301 BC. Of the four, Ptolemy Soter had already established himself much earlier in Egypt, south of the Grecian Empire. Lysimachus took the north, Cassander the west, and Seleucus the east. These four generals were the four heads of the leopard and the four horns of the goat, now being repeated by Gabriel in verse 4 of Daniel chapter 11. Gabriel goes on to explain how the four strongest leaders would then boil down to just two, Ptolemy the first and Seleucus the first. These two kings were the first of a line of two great superpowers to dominate the Grecian world, the king of the south and the king of the north. The king of the south was geographically south of Palestine, and the king of the north was north of Palestine, where most of God's people were located. Each successive king of the south and north of the Grecian Empire continued to carry the title of either king of the south or king of the north until the Grecian kingdom came to its end. These titles are used again in Daniel 11 near its close when speaking of our day, a time when God's people are no longer confined to Palestine but scattered all over the world. Therefore, the compass for determining the south power and the north power would no longer be the geographical relationship to Palestine. We would need to look for another compass. The saying goes, like mother, like daughter. So too the king of the south yesterday is like or similar to the king of the south today. For example, the first king of the south ruled over Egypt and was most notably known in the Bible for declaring who is God. In the 18th century, France became the king of the south when they too expressed through their laws and government similar atheistic principles and workings. In the 20th and 21st century, we will see that the king of the south is Russia, who took on similar principles of atheism while being the second strongest superpower militarily and economically. The king of the north, Seleucus, as described in verse 5, was strong above or stronger than the king of the south, Ptolemy. It has always been that the north power has had greater military and economic strength than the south. Not only that, but in the past the king of the north often attacked from the north through Babylon. A careful tracing of Daniel and Revelation will show us that the characteristics of Babylon finds its fulfillment today in the working of the papacy and America. America is strong above Russia both economically and militarily, and indisputably the leading superpower in the world today. Nevertheless, we will see from Daniel 11 that in the history of this conflict between the South and the North, Russia will certainly be to America a competitive rival and a thorn in America's flesh, and their conflicts today will affect the people of God all over the world. Are you making preparation? Russia in Daniel 11, end of part 1.